the golden boy of Las Vegas. The Sand Hotel in Las Vegas was a crown jewel of the Strip in 1961. Its Copa Room was where legends were made, where the biggest names in entertainment commanded stages and capture hearts. And no one commanded that stage quite like Dean Martin. Dean was at the absolute peak of his powers. His records were topping charts. His movies were box office gold. His television specials drew millions of viewers. And every night at the Sands, he packed the house with audiences who came to watch him sing, joke, and make everything look impossibly easy. He was smooth, sophisticated, effortlessly cool, the epitome of Las Vegas glamour. But Dean Martin wasn't born into glamour. He was born Dino Paul Crocetti in Steubenville, Ohio, to Italian immigrant parents who barely spoke English. His father was a barber. His mother, Angela, worked as a seamstress, her fingers bleeding from pushing needles through thick fabric for 12 hours a day to help keep the family fed. Dean never forgot where he came from, even as he became one of the highest-paid entertainers in the world. Even as he hobnobbed with presidents and movie stars, he remained fiercely proud of his working-class roots. And he remained devoted to his mother, the woman who had sacrificed everything to give him opportunities she'd never had. In October 1961, Angela Crocetti Martin came to Las Vegas to visit her famous son. She was 67 years old, a small woman with weathered hands and a thick Italian accent that 50 years in America hadn't softened. She dressed simply, conservatively, in the kind of modest clothing that working women wore. Nothing flashy, nothing expensive. She looked exactly like what she was, an elderly immigrant woman who had worked hard her entire life. Dean had invited her to stay at the Sands, in one of the hotel's finest suites. He wanted to spoil her, to show her the world he'd built, to give her a taste of the luxury she'd never known. He'd made all the arrangements personally, had told the hotel staff his mother was coming, had made it clear she was to be treated like royalty. What Dean didn't know was that his mother's arrival would test everything he believed about loyalty, family, and standing up for what's right. What he didn't know was that October afternoon in 1961 would become one of the defining moments of his life. The rejection. Angela Martin walked into the Sands hotel lobby at 2:30 in the afternoon. She'd taken a taxi from the airport, her small suitcase in hand, nervous but excited. Her son was a star here. She'd seen his name on the marquee outside, letters 10 feet tall, Dean Martin. Her Dino, her baby boy who used to sing while she sewed by candlelight in their tiny apartment in Steubenville. The lobby was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead. Well-dressed people moved through the space with purpose and confidence. Angela felt out of place immediately, but she squared her shoulders and approached the front desk. Her son had invited her. She belonged here. The desk manager on duty was a man named Richard Holbrook. He was in his 40s, impeccably dressed, with slick back hair, and the kind of condescending smile that people in service industries perfect when dealing with customers they consider beneath them. He was talking to another employee when Angela approached, and he didn't look up immediately. "Excuse me," Angela said, her accent thick. "I am Angela Martin. My son, he make reservation for me." Holbrook glanced up, and Angela saw his expression change. His eyes traveled from her simple dress to her worn shoes to her modest suitcase. She saw judgment in that look, dismissal, and something worse, disgust. "I'm sorry," Holbrook said, not sounding sorry at all. "We don't have any reservation under that name." "Martin," Angela repeated. "Dean Martin. He is my son. He tell me." "Ma'am," Holbrook interrupted, his voice cold. "I don't know who you think your son is, but we don't have a reservation for you. And frankly, the Sands Hotel maintains certain standards for our guests." Angela felt her face flush. She understood what he meant. She wasn't dressed right. She didn't look like she belonged here. In his eyes, she was just another elderly immigrant woman, probably confused, probably lying about having a famous son. "Please," Angela said, her voice quieter now. The English words harder to find when she was upset. "Please, you check again. Dean Martin, he is performer here. He is my son. He make reservation." "Ma'am," Holbrook said, his patience clearly exhausted, "I'm going to have to ask you to leave. If you continue to insist on this story, I'll have to call security. Other people in the lobby were starting to notice. Angela felt their eyes on her, felt the weight of their judgment. She was causing a scene. She, who had always been so careful, so quiet, so determined never to draw attention or make trouble. "I no lie," Angela said, tears starting in her eyes. "My son, he is Dean Martin. Please, you call him." "Security," Holbrook called, gesturing to a uniformed guard near the entrance. "Please escort this woman out of the hotel." The security guard, a younger man who looked uncomfortable with the situation, approached Angela gently. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but you need to leave." Angela looked at him, then at Holbrook, then at all the people watching her humiliation. She thought about her son, about how proud she'd been when he called to invite her, about how she told all her friends back home that her Dino wanted her to visit his fancy hotel. And now she was being thrown out like a vagrant, like a liar, like someone who didn't matter. She picked up her suitcase, her hands shaking. "I no lie," she said one more time, her voice breaking. Then she turned and walked toward the exit, her head held as high as she could manage while tears streamed down her face. She made it as far as the taxi stand outside before she couldn't hold it together anymore. She sat down on a bench, put her face in her hands, and wept, not just from the humiliation, though that burned like acid, but from the deeper wound of being treated like she was nothing, like her whole life of hard work and sacrifice meant nothing, like she was invisible. That's where Dean Martin found her 20 minutes later. The confrontation. Dean had been in a meeting with Jack and Tratter, the Sands entertainment director, going over the set list for that evening's show. He was scheduled to perform in 4 hours, and the show was sold out, 1,800 people paying top dollar to see him sing. A bellhop knocked on the conference room door, looking nervous. "Mr. Martin?" "Sir, there's a woman outside at the taxi stand. She's crying, and she keeps saying she's your mother, but the front desk turned her away, and—" Dean was out of his chair and moving before the bellhop finished speaking. He knew immediately what must have happened. His mother, his sweet, humble mother who'd never asked for anything, had come here excited to see him, and someone had judged her, dismissed her, humiliated her. He found her on the bench outside, her face still in her hands, her small shoulders shaking with sobs. The sight of her sitting there, alone and crying, after everything she'd done for him, after all the years she worked her fingers raw to feed him. Something broke inside Dean Martin that day. "Mama," he said softly, kneeling in front of her. Angela looked up, and when she saw her son, her face crumpled. "Dino," she sobbed, using his childhood name. "They say I lie. They say I no belong here. They throw me out." Dean took her hands in his. They were the hands that had sewn clothes in the dark, that had scrubbed floors, that had held him when he was sick as a child. They were trembling now. "Who did this?" Dean asked, his voice very quiet, very controlled. But there was something dangerous in that control, something that made the bellhop who'd followed him outside take an involuntary step back. "The man at desk," Angela said. "He say I not good enough for this hotel. He say I lie about you." Dean stood up. He was still wearing his expensive suit from the meeting, perfectly tailored, every inch the star. He took his mother's hand. "Come with me, Mama." He led her back into the hotel, through those same lobby doors she'd been escorted out of. People turned to look, recognition rippling through the crowd. That's Dean Martin. That's Dean Martin with an elderly woman. Who is she? Dean walked straight to the front desk where Richard Holbrook was now dealing with another guest. "Excuse me," Dean said, his voice carrying across the lobby. "I need to speak with you." Holbrook turned, and when he saw Dean Martin standing there, his face went pale. He recognized him instantly. Everyone in Las Vegas knew Dean Martin, and he suddenly recognized a small woman standing next to him, the woman he had thrown out 30 minutes ago. "Mr. Martin?" Holbrook stammered. "I didn't know." "You didn't know this was my mother?" Dean interrupted, his voice still controlled, but with an edge that made everyone in the lobby stop what they were doing to listen. "She told you she was. She told you multiple times. She explained that I'd made a reservation for her, and you decided she was lying." "Sir, she didn't look like... we have certain standards." "Standards," Dean repeated. The word hung in the air like an accusation. What standard exactly? The standard that says an elderly woman who doesn't dress in expensive clothes must be a liar? The standard that says someone with an accent isn't good enough for your hotel? The standard that says my mother, the woman who raised me, isn't worthy of basic human decency? The lobby was completely silent now. Everyone was watching this unfold. "I apologize," Holbrook said quickly. "It was a misunderstanding. We'll get your mother checked in right away." A misunderstanding? Dean's voice rose now, the controls slipping, raw emotion breaking through. "You humiliated her. You had her thrown out. You made her cry. My mother, who has never hurt anyone in her life, who worked herself to bone to raise me, who gave up everything so I could have opportunities. You looked at her and decided she was worthless." Dean turned to address the entire lobby, his voice carrying to every corner of the space. "This woman you see standing next to me, her name is Angela Martin. She came to this country with nothing. She worked as a seamstress for 40 years, 12-hour days, 6 days a week. She raised me and my siblings in a one-bedroom apartment in Ohio. She went without food so we could eat. She never bought herself anything new, so we could have school clothes. She never complained, never asked for anything, never stopped working." People in the lobby were completely transfixed. Angela was crying again, but these were different tears. "And when she came to this hotel today," Dean continued, "excited to see her son, proud to stay in a nice place for once in her life, your manager looked at her and saw trash. He saw someone who didn't belong. He saw someone who was okay to humiliate and dismiss." Dean turned back to Holbrook, and the fury in his eyes was terrifying. "I want you fired. Right now. I want you escorted out of this hotel the same way you had my mother escorted out." "Mr. Martin," a voice said from behind them. Jack and Tratter had entered the lobby. "Please, let's discuss this in my office." "No," Dean said flatly. "We're discussing it right here, right now, in front of everyone, because my mother's humiliation was public. So the consequences should be public too." And Tratter looked at Holbrook, then at Dean, then at the crowd of people watching. He was thinking about the sold-out show that night, about Dean Martin's contract, about the millions of dollars at stake. "Richard," and Tratter said quietly to Holbrook, "You're fired. Please leave the premises immediately." Holbrook opened his mouth to protest, looked at Dean's face and thought better of it. He removed his name tag, placed it on the desk, and walked out of the hotel in silence. But Dean wasn't finished. Angela's story, why this mattered. Dean turned to Jack and Tratter, and everyone in the lobby could see he was fighting to keep his composure. His mother was still standing next to him, small and humble and crying. And something about the contrast, this tiny elderly immigrant woman and her famous son defending her like she was the most important person in the world, was almost unbearably moving. "You need to understand something," Dean said, his voice thick with emotion now. "You all need to understand something." He put his arm around his mother's shoulders. "I was born in a house with no electricity. We had one room for a family of 6. My father cut hair for 50 cents a customer, and my mother sewed dresses for rich ladies who wouldn't look at her twice. We ate beans and bread most nights because that's all we could afford. I spoke only Italian until I was 5 years old, because that's all anyone in our neighborhood spoke. The lobby was so quiet you could hear the fountain outside. When I was 9 years old," Dean continued, "I wanted to join the school choir, but choir members had to have proper shoes, and we couldn't afford them. My mother stayed up 3 nights in a row taking an extra sewing work. She sewed until her fingers bled, literally bled, to earn the money for those shoes. And when she gave them to me, she told me to sing loud, to sing proud, to never be ashamed of where I came from." Angela was sobbing openly now, and Dean's voice was breaking. "She worked herself sick, so I could have singing lessons. She convinced my father to let me pursue entertainment instead of getting a real job. She believed in me when nobody else did. She sacrificed everything, so I could have a chance at something better." Dean looked around at all the wealthy, well-dressed people in the lobby. "And today, when she walked into this hotel, a hotel that's made millions of dollars from my performances, Your manager looked at her and saw someone not worth his time. Someone not worth basic respect. Someone who could be thrown out like garbage. He turned back to Intrater. I'm not performing tonight. The statement landed like a bomb. Intrater's face went white. Dean, you can't. We have a sold-out show. I don't care, Dean said. I'm not performing tonight, and I'm not performing any other night until things change around here. What things? Intrater asked carefully. What do you want? I want my mother treated like the queen she is. Dean said, I want the best suite in this hotel. I want every staff member to know her name and treat her with respect. I want an apology, a real apology, not some corporate nonsense. Done. Intrater said immediately, all of that is done. Please, Dean. I'm not finished, Dean interrupted. I want a new policy at this hotel. No guest gets judged based on how they look or how they dress or what accent they have. No working class person gets treated like they're less than wealthy guests. No mother, no father, no grandmother or grandfather who comes to visit their kids gets dismissed or humiliated because they don't look sophisticated enough. Intrater hesitated. This was asking a lot. This was asking the Sands to change how it operated, to treat everyone the same regardless of how much money they appear to have. If you can't agree to that, Dean said, reading Intrater's hesitation, then I'm done here. I'll break my contract. Pay whatever penalty you want, and I'll never perform at the Sands again. And I'll make sure every newspaper in America knows exactly why. The standoff career versus family. Jack Intrater was in an impossible position, and he knew it. The Sands Hotel had built much of its reputation on Dean Martin's performances. His shows drew high rollers, celebrities, and regular tourists willing to pay premium prices. A sold-out Dean Martin show meant packed casinos, full restaurants, booked hotel rooms. His presence at the Sands was worth millions of dollars annually. But more than that, losing Dean Martin would mean losing the rest of the Rat Pack. If Dean walked away from the Sands, Frank Sinatra would follow. So would Sammy Davis Jr. So would Peter Lawford and Joey Bishop. The Sands would lose its crown as the entertainment capital of Las Vegas virtually overnight. Intrater looked at Dean at the fury and determination in his eyes. He looked at Angela, still crying quietly, still unable to quite believe her son was doing this for her. He looked at the crowd in the lobby, hanging on every word, watching to see what would happen. And Jack Intrater, a pragmatic businessman who'd seen everything Las Vegas had to offer, made a calculation. He could refuse Dean's demands and lose everything. Or he could agree and potentially change how the Sands, and by extension Las Vegas, treated people. Okay, Intrater said. We'll do it. All of it. I want it in writing, Dean said. And I want the new policy posted at every entrance, at every front desk, in every employee break room. I want every staff member trained on it. And I want my mother to approve the wording. Intrater blinked. Your mother to approve it? My mother knows what it feels like to be dismissed, Dean said. She knows what it feels like to be treated like you're nothing. She should get to decide what respect looks like. Angela looked up at her son, fresh tears streaming down her face. Dino, she whispered, you no need to do this. Dean knelt down again, so he was eye level with her. He took both her hands. Mama, my entire career exists because you believed in me, because you sacrificed for me, because you taught me that every person deserves dignity and respect. How could I not do this? How could I stand here and let them treat you like you don't matter? He stood back up and addressed the crowd. My mother taught me that it doesn't matter if someone is rich or poor, educated or not, well-dressed or in work clothes. What matters is how they treat others. What matters is kindness. What matters is recognizing that every person you meet is someone's child, someone's parent, someone who matters to people who love them. Dean's voice was stronger now, more passionate. And if this hotel, if this city, if this whole entertainment industry wants to judge people by their bank accounts and their clothes instead of their character, then I don't want any part of it. I'd rather go back to singing in small clubs in Ohio than make another dollar in a place that treats my mother like trash. The crowd burst into spontaneous applause. People were crying, moved by Dean's defense of his mother, moved by watching someone with everything to lose choose family over career without hesitation. Angela was sobbing so hard she could barely stand. Dean held her, and she buried her face in his expensive suit jacket, the suit that cost more than she'd earned a year of sewing, and she cried for everything, for the humiliation she'd experienced, for the pride she felt in her son, for the knowledge that she'd raised a man who would risk everything to defend her dignity. "I'll have the papers drawn up within an hour," Intrater said. "Mrs. Martin, you'll have our finest suite, and I'll personally ensure every staff member knows to treat you with the utmost respect. And Dean, I promise you, the Sand Hotel will never treat a working-class guest with disrespect again." Dean nodded. "Then I'll perform tonight. But I'm dedicating the show to my mother, and I'm inviting everyone in this lobby to attend for free as my guests." Intrater nearly choked but nodded. The goodwill from this moment was worth far more than one night's ticket sales. "One more thing," Dean said. "Richard Holbrook." "He's fired," Intrater said. "He's gone. I don't want him blackballed from the industry." Dean said, "I want him to get another chance. But I want him to take a class on treating people with dignity first. And I want him to apologize to my mother personally, in private, when he's ready to mean it." This shocked everyone, including Angela. Even after being humiliated, Dean was showing grace, offering redemption, proving that this wasn't about revenge. It was about teaching people to be better. Intrater extended his hand to Dean, then to Angela. "You have my word. All of it. The resolution and new beginning." Within an hour, Angela Martin was settled into the Sands Hotel's presidential suite. It was bigger than the apartment she'd raised her children in. It had a chandelier in the bathroom. The bed was so large she got lost in it. Room service brought her food on silver trays, and every staff member who entered called her Mrs. Martin with genuine warmth and respect. But the real change happened in the hotel's main conference room, where Jack Intrater gathered every single employee, from housekeepers to pit bosses to restaurant managers, for an emergency meeting. What happened today was unacceptable, Intrater told the assembled staff. "One of our employees humiliated and rejected a guest based on her appearance. That guest happened to be Dean Martin's mother, which is why we're all here right now. But that's not the point. The point is that we should treat every guest with respect, regardless of who they are or who they're related to." He held up a piece of paper. Angela Martin, sitting in a chair at the front of the room with Dean standing beside her, had helped him write it. "This is our new policy," Intrater read aloud. "The Sands Hotel welcomes all guests regardless of their appearance, accent, ethnicity, or apparent wealth. Every person who walks through our doors deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. We serve people, not bank accounts. We honor guests, not clothes. And anyone who cannot treat our guests with basic human decency will no longer work here." He paused. "This policy is effective immediately. It will be posted at every entrance and every service desk. And Mrs. Martin here, who was so poorly treated today, is going to help us train staff on what respect actually looks like." Angela stood up, nervous but determined. In halting English, she spoke to the room full of employees. "I come to America when I am 18, she said. "I know speak English. I know have education. I work very hard my whole life. I raise good children. I try to be kind to everyone. But many times, people look at me and see nothing. They see old woman with accent. They see someone who no matter." She paused, gathering courage. "But I do matter. Everyone matters. The cleaning lady who make your room nice, she matter. The cook who make your food, he matter. The person who carry your bags, they matter. Rich people are no more important than working people. Just different. We are all people." Tears were streaming down her face, but she continued. "My son, he famous now. But he remember where he come from. He remember I teach him every person deserve respect. And now, he makes sure this hotel remember too." The room was completely silent. Then slowly, someone started clapping. Then someone else. Then everyone was standing, applauding the small elderly immigrant woman who had turned her humiliation into a lesson for an entire hotel. That night, Dean Martin performed to a packed house. But before he sang a single note, he brought his mother on stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his arm around Angela's shoulders, "this is my mama, Angela Martin. Earlier today, she was treated poorly by this hotel because someone judged her based on her appearance. That person no longer works here. But more importantly, because of my mama's courage and grace, the Sand Hotel has implemented a new policy ensuring that every guest, rich or poor, famous or not, will be treated with equal respect." The audience erupted in applause. Angela, embarrassed but proud, waved shyly before Dean escorted her to a front row seat. "I'm dedicating tonight's show to her," Dean continued, "because everything good about me, I learned from her. And if you get nothing else from tonight's show, remember this. Treat every person you meet like they're someone's mother, someone's father, someone who matters to people who love them, because they are." The ripple effect across Las Vegas. Word of what happened at the Sands spread through Las Vegas like wildfire. By the next morning, every hotel on the Strip had heard the story. Every entertainment director, every hotel manager, every casino boss knew that Dean Martin had shut down a sold-out show to defend his mother's dignity. The incident forced an uncomfortable conversation across the hospitality industry. How many other guests have been turned away or treated poorly based on appearance? How many working-class parents visiting their performer children had been made to feel unwelcome? How many people have been judged and dismissed for not looking wealthy enough? Within a week, 3 other major hotels, the Sahara, the Desert Inn, and the Flamingo, had implemented similar policies. Within a month, it became an industry standard. No one wanted to be the hotel that mistreated the next Angela Martin. Frank Sinatra, when he heard what Dean had done, told reporters, "That's what separates the performers from the artists." Dean could have let it slide, could have smoothed it over quietly. Instead, he used his position to make real change. That's character. That's leadership. Sammy Davis Jr., who had faced his own discrimination in Vegas, was particularly moved. Dean didn't just stand up for his mother, Sammy said. He stood up for every working-class person, every immigrant, every person who's been judged by their appearance. He used his privilege to protect the vulnerable. That's what real courage looks like. Other performers started following Dean's lead. They began insisting their contracts include clauses about how their families and guests should be treated. They began speaking up when they saw staff being disrespectful to guests who didn't look wealthy. Dean's stand had given them permission to demand better, but the impact went beyond Vegas. Newspapers across America picked up the story. "Dean Martin defends mother's dignity," read one headline. "Singer stops show until hotel changes policy," read another. Suddenly, Dean Martin wasn't just a smooth-voiced crooner. He was a working-class hero who'd stood up for his immigrant mother. Angela received letters from thousands of people, immigrants who'd faced similar discrimination, working-class parents who'd been made to feel lesser than, people who'd been judged and dismissed based on appearance. They all thanked her for having the courage to let Dean tell her story, for turning her humiliation into a force for change. The legacy, what brotherhood really means. Dean Martin continued performing at the Sands for years after that October day in 1961. But something had shifted. The hotel staff treated every guest differently, with more awareness, more sensitivity. The Sands became known not just for its entertainment, but for its welcoming atmosphere. Angela visited her son in Vegas many times after that. Each time, she was treated like royalty, but more importantly, every other guest who looked like her, who dressed like her, who spoke with an accent like hers, was also treated with respect. Dean made sure of it. Years later, in a rare serious interview, Dean was asked about that day. "People think being a star means you get to be selfish," he said. "They think success means you forget where you came from. But for me, success only matters if I can use it to protect the people I love. What good is fame if I can't stand up for my mother? What good is money if I can't buy her dignity?" He paused, emotion crossing his face. "My mama taught me that every person matters. She taught me that wealth doesn't equal worth. She taught me that you measure a person by how they treat others, especially those with less power. So when someone treated her like she was worthless, I couldn't let it stand. Not just for her, but for every parent, every working person, every immigrant who gets judged and dismissed every day. Angela Martin lived to be 89 years old. She died in 1967, surrounded by family, in a comfortable home that her son had bought for her. At her funeral, Dean stood at the podium and told the story of that day at the Sands one more time. "My mother was embarrassed when I made such a big deal about what happened," Dean said. "She kept saying, 'Dino, you no need to do this.' Okay. But I needed to do it, not just for her, but for me, because she taught me that love means action. Love means standing up. Love means using whatever power you have to protect people's dignity." He looked out at the packed church. We live in a world that judges people constantly by their clothes, their accent, their skin color, their bank account. My mother taught me to see past all of that, to see the person. And when the world tried to tell her she didn't matter because she wasn't rich or sophisticated, I had to show her and show everyone that she mattered more than anything. The story of Dean Martin defending his mother at the Sands Hotel became part of Las Vegas legend, not because of the glamour or the celebrity drama, but because it showed what happens when someone with power and privilege uses it for good. It showed what real love looks like. It showed that standing up for what's right matters more than protecting your career, your reputation, or your safety. Dean Martin could have quietly fixed the situation. He could have gotten his mother checked in without making a scene. He could have dealt with it behind closed doors. But he chose to make it public, to turn his mother's humiliation into a teaching moment, to force an entire industry to confront how it treated people. That's the real legacy. Not the songs, not the movies, not the cool image. The legacy is a small, elderly immigrant woman being treated with dignity because her son loved her enough to risk everything. The legacy is thousands of other working-class guests being treated better because one man drew a line and refused to let injustice stand. The legacy is understanding that fame and fortune mean nothing if you don't use them to protect the vulnerable, to stand up for the dismissed, to demand better treatment for those who can't demand it for themselves. October 1961, the month Angela Martin was rejected at the Sand Hotel, and her son Dean changed Las Vegas forever. The month that proved love is stronger than power. The month that showed the world what it really means to honor your mother. That's a performance worth remembering.